Hello, welcome to the Gaggle webinar. We are right at the top of the hour. I'm going to kick us off in just another minute as I see we've got people still making their way into our session today. I hope everyone's day is off to a great start. All right, we've got people joining in. So with that, I will go ahead and get us started. Thank you again for joining the Gaggle Therapy webinar. Today, we are going to focus on how Gaggle Therapy has partnered with 3 amazing school districts, and you're going to get to meet 3 amazing women who have dedicated their careers to the well-being of children and families, and are all part of student services departments in their current roles. I will be introducing them all to you in just a minute, where they will start off by sharing their backgrounds and a little bit about the roles that they're in. From there, we will move into a panel-like discussion so you can learn about how and why they integrated Gaggle Therapy into services that they offer to students and teachers. I am going to start us off by sharing my screen. We've got some slides for you here today. And as I do that, I will tee us up to get started. I'm Heather Durkak, and I currently serve as the Chief Innovation Officer at Gaggle and oversee our mental health teams of Gaggle Therapy and Gaggle Reach Out, which is our student crisis line. I have been with Gaggle for 17 years in a variety of roles, and I'll say the one constant in the many roles and hats that I have been in and worn in my time at Gaggle has always been to build and deliver exceptional products and services to meet the needs of our customers, which is why I'm excited to talk about one of our newer products and services, which is Gaggle Therapy. Feel free to use the chat to ask questions. I will be doing my best to monitor those and bring those to the panel as we move into the panel discussion. Let's jump into a brief overview about Gaggle and our mental health services. Gaggle launched 25 years ago with a product that focused on connecting teachers and students via email, and that put us on a trajectory towards safety and well-being. At Gaggle, it is our mission to ensure the safety and well-being of students in schools by leveraging people and technology. And we do this by partnering with districts to ensure that all schools are safe and students get the mental and emotional help that they need. So I'll share that we have a three-part solution focused on that safety and well-being. First, we have Gaggle Safety Management. That's our core product, one of our starter products, and it works to protect your students in the online environment with accounts or device-based coverage in your Google or Office 365 environment. We review all online activity for concerning content. We are looking for things related to suicide, self-harm, bullying, and violence towards others. We look for guns and weapons detection and also looking for sexually explicit content. Based on the content and severity of what we find, we will email, text, or call the district specified contacts. We review this content 24/7, 365. We also have a district-specific crisis line called Reach Out. This is also a 24/7, 365 service that allows for your students to connect with a crisis counselor through, they're able to talk to them, text, or use a web chat about anything that they're dealing with, just giving them someone they want to talk to when they want to open up. It's that in the moment support that we are there for. And then we share that information back to the district for decisions or needs around ongoing support or safety needs. And finally, our Gaggle Therapy service. This matches your student to a therapist to get ongoing mental health support they need. This is what we're going to spend our time on today. All of these services help you extend your protection to support all of your students. I'm going to start by sharing some highlights of our therapy services. So let's look at some stats. We launched therapy in 2020, and we've offered over 32,000 student sessions and over 2,500 sessions to educators. You see the states where we are providing services, but if you don't see your state, don't worry. Our team is built in a way that when a district from a new state comes on board with Gaggle, our recruiters are busy in the background finding therapists to meet your needs with your state licensure requirements. Next, I'll show you some of the benefits. Districts set up a retainer amount, and then Gaggle will bill against that retainer as we hold sessions. So you pay for what you use. Districts budget a specified amount, use grants or other funding sources such as Medicaid to cover the expense. School is not always the best place for a therapy session to take place, so we do offer nights and weekend options. We know that finding therapists that can make connections with your students is so important. So that is the experience we are looking for in the therapist that will be working with your students. Our recruiters do a great job to look to find therapists that are going to match your needs and that they will all work to deliver the best path forward and meet the needs of each individual client. The way to look at Gaggle Therapy is to focus on students and mental health needs that are that good fit for telehealth. Telehealth does not fit every student or every mental health need, but here you can see where we are a good fit. So you can focus on your resources, such as time, on students who fall outside of these categories. And to put that into perspective, here is a breakdown of our referral reasons over the past year. As you can see, our largest population that we serve are kids with anxiety and depression. We also see handling intense emotions, coping skills with relationship and self-esteem, as well as dealing with grief and trauma. All of these students saw a licensed therapist focused on supporting them with their specific needs. Our goal is to partner with you to extend your reach to all students in need of safety and well-being. Now it's time to meet some of those amazing partners. I'm more than ready to introduce you to our panelists who will now join me on screen for their introductions. So we should see them joining us now. If you can go ahead and come off camera and off mute, we are all set. Thank you so much. First, we have Becky Perquette. Becky, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I would love to. My name is Becky Perquette. I am a former kindergarten teacher, elementary principal in this district that I serve in now, as well as middle school principal. Currently, I serve in the role of community school coordinator, attendance officer, and ESL teacher in this district. We are a district that serves about 8,000 people with 1,200 students and 12 square miles. My job as community school coordinator is to remove any barriers that may keep kids from school. And in doing so, I make all the mental health referrals.
Thanks, Becky. Becky does use Gaggle Therapy at her district. Next, we have Maggie Butler. Maggie is Gaggle Therapy and a safety management customer. Maggie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Heather. My air just kicked on, so hopefully you can't, it's not too distracting. But my name is Maggie Butler. I am a district liaison for North Platte Schools in Nebraska. Formerly, I have worked in human services in various forms. I worked for Child Protective Services for a while, as well as workforce services. And our district is maybe a little larger than Becky and Dawn's. Our community size is about 23,000, and our district serves about 4,000 students between elementary and high school. So this is my going into my 4th year with the district, and we have been using Gaggle Therapy and Gaggle Safety for the last 3. So we're going into our 4th year with those.
Great. Thanks, Maggie. And last but certainly not least, also Gaggle Therapy and Gaggle Safety Management customer is Dawn.
Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Dawn Sine. I'm the Director of Student Services for the Wisconsin Dells School District in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. We have a relatively small community. I think we're about 8,000 people. However, we are also a unique community in that we are a significant tourist community. We go up to about 150,000 easily in the summer. We also have a very diverse community, which is part of what has made Gaggle great for us. But I serve, again, as the Director of Student Services, so I oversee all of our EL programming, special ed programming, Title IX, counseling, all of those pieces.
Great, thank you, Dawn. Dawn, why don't we kind of keep the mic on you if we can. This is a question for everyone, but why don't we start off just talking briefly, what challenges were you facing being in a rural district to support the mental health needs of your students? Go ahead, Dawn.
Sure. We definitely had difficulty finding therapy for students, in particular counseling for students that were seeking that. And even some of our students who could get into therapy were struggling then having transportation to get there. So for us, this was just a great fit in that our students can not only get the free therapy, get in to see a therapist, but they also don't have the commute issue. And for a lot of our families in the community we're in, they're working 2 and 3 jobs, and they just don't have the time.
Right, I'm sure that tourists, kind of the jobs in your community, which I have spent a fair amount of time in, being the water park capital of the world, probably leads to a lot of the, that we can relate to the roles that they're serving. So great.
Yeah.
So a lot of transportation and just being able to have therapists available and transportation.
The other thing I will add really quickly is the bilingual component.
Okay.
So we do have for being a small school district, we are right around 14% of our student population are English learners. And so having the flexibility of being able to potentially have therapists that are bilingual was another huge factor for us.
Oh, great. Thank you. Becky, what about you?
Well, being able to match therapists with students immediately is such an important factor for parents. When I attend student meetings and the parent says, I'd like to get therapy, but it could take 6 weeks to 6 months to get in, and I'm able to say, well, I can refer you tomorrow. That is just the best feeling for them. They're always so grateful that we have that service, and it makes me feel good as well, because usually our students that need therapy need it immediately, not in 6 weeks to 6 months.
Right. So the no little to no wait time. Thank you. Maggie, what about for your district?
Similar to Don and Becky, just kind of saw that need in the community with wait lists building and being out for 6 months to a year, especially coming off of the pandemic. There was a major need, and so we kind of anticipated the increase in mental and behavioral health needs, and just saw that as a way to kind of bridge the gap for those large wait lists in the community. So that way there wasn't, waiting months for students to be served before they could get into a community provider.
Right. Thank you for sharing. Maggie, with your district being a little larger than Becky and Dawn's, can you share a little bit about like how you determine what students will be referred to therapy? What's your intake process look like, and how do you get them to Gaggle?
Absolutely. So our district, we have 7 elementary buildings. We have a 6th grade building, and then a 7th and 8th grade middle school, and then a high school. So yeah, we we have a lot of buildings that we cover, and I meet with them on a sometimes weekly, bi-weekly basis. And I partner with the counselors and the principals of the building and just talk about the needs of the students. And if we have concerns about mental behavioral health, the first question was always, what was the family need? Did they have insurance? And then after that, like, what was the availability within the community? So priority was students who didn't have the ability to cover cost of counseling, whether it be out of pocket or through insurance. And then just we used our behavior tiers to assess like kind of the severity, like, if there was a lot versus maybe not as many needing it at one point. So those were kind of our 2 thresholds. And then also we work closely with our community, like Health and Human Services. So if anybody was working with them, depending on like the level of trauma, do they need to get in sooner, or is it something where telehealth maybe not be appropriate because of age or something like that. So there were various facets that we looked at prior to referring, but it was great that very little wait time turnaround for those kids that we needed to get in.
Great. So I showed the breakdown of students, the referral reasons with the anxiety and depression and self-esteem, relationships. That kind of speaks to the tier system, how you're applying your tiers. So it's important, I think, like on the district side, in your role on your side too, you're doing that evaluation and vetting and identifying where telehealth is a good fit. You also mentioned age and other options. So that really helps to keep the process moving along, because you are referring to Gaggle the referral reasons that we support you best in, which then leads to that quick matching, because those are the therapists that we look for, and allows for the other point that we've heard brought up is being able to start those sessions so quickly. Becky, why don't we kind of build on this a little bit and talk about that importance of the match and how the matching has gone for you and your team?
The matching is absolutely phenomenal, because when it doesn't work, Gaggle's very open to saying, you know what, we just need to know what the problem could have been, how the client is feeling, and then we can try to match them with someone else. And that's been wonderful. And not only do they do that, they also will contact me and say, this student, I don't know if the student really wants therapy. They're not opening up. We're not going anywhere. Maybe this isn't maybe this isn't what we need, what's the best thing for that student. And the other piece of this is that we've also had teachers who have been looking for therapy and are able to do it at night when they're at home or on weekends. And I've only heard wonderful things from them about how it's made a positive, um, it's done some positive things in their lives that they didn't even realize that they needed, and it's really helped them. And that's wonderful when you're talking to parents to be able to say, we not only do students, but we also have our teachers.
Oh, that's great. And thank you for sharing that. That makes my heart so happy that we can, as we were launching the service, it was, we worked so hard to just, be a service and a product that supports the needs of our customers, of our districts. And it was a district that came to us and said, well, you're offering this to students. Can I send my teachers too? They're not finding. And we said, great question. Thank you for asking. Thank you for thinking about us to help. And we said yes. And that's how we learned and made the decision to open it up to the teachers, to educators, so we can supplement those EAP programs, or just all of the things we're seeing help the students when it's logistics and time or wait times really can carry over to the teachers too, because we know when we're fueling their soul and we're helping them be positive, they show up great for our students, and that's what we all want. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure it helps them relate to the students too, or
Yes.
they can say, I did this too, I here's what I liked about it. Or to a parent that may be thinking, like, does my kid really need therapy? You kind of get to carry that over.
Exactly. And the other thing that I want to say is that the therapists are just so personable, and many times um, they will they'll reach out and say, hey, this student didn't look like they would like there's something more there, can you check on them? And I appreciate that so much, because that's really forming relationships, and really helps to carry over. I even had a therapist once that said, they called me and said, Becky, I think this child is vaping on my session. You need to send someone in there to check. And he was. And so that was appreciated as well. So I mean, I
Yeah.
can't tell you how wonderful it's been.
Well, we really work to be an extension of your teams and
Right.
your services. We're like another resource, another tool in the toolbox. And we really learned over the past few years to truly be that extension, is to keep you updated on the students, or what could be happening right there. And I'm just going to make sure our recruiters aren't planning to pay for this plug later, because I'm sure our therapist recruiters, they're just beaming right now, because they do work very hard to make sure we find the right fit. We have so many of our therapists that have worked in schools, or are maybe now at that clinical supervision level, and they want to still do sessions to stay connected to kids. So they so many of our therapists have been in your shoes, or your school counselor shoes, or your school therapist shoes, so they know the importance of making sure the director or the counselor knows the full story to help the kid be successful. Like, maybe just share this with another teacher. They're struggling to go to this class only. Here's why, different things like that. So they've done a lot of that. They've been in hallways like yours, and they know, to get behind that, it takes a village comment for sure. I think this ties nicely into a pivot over to Dawn, as we're talking about what it's like hearing from a therapist from the sessions, that how about how your students are communicating and maybe coming to you? Oh, you're on mute. I just want to point that out. You know, we can't do a webinar without saying it. It's always someone.
Right,
It's a
right.
gift.
You're on mute. I feel like it's the key word.
Yes.
So kind of like what I'm talking about, I think Maggie was talking about referrals and doing that. I will say the majority of our referrals, we have set up that they go through our school counselors. As a little bit smaller district, that's kind of how we're not big enough to just have one person, or small enough to just have one person, but we do have our school counselors do that. However, um, those referrals also have come through parents, through the students themselves. And I shared a story with Heather earlier that I was talking to some students I work throughout the district. I happened to be in a building and was talking to a young man, and we were kind of in a private setting. But as we were stepping out of that more private setting into the hallway, he was making a comment about his Gaggle therapy and thank you, and he was excited. And another student said, "Hey, Mrs. Stein, can I talk to you?" And wanted to step aside, and he's like leans down and whispers, and he's like, I want to know about that therapy, and can I get some of that too? And it was just a really, for me, a powerful moment, because this was a young man that for a long time we've wanted to get in to some counseling, and he was resistant. um, Parent, I would say, wasn't as much resistant as just didn't have the time to take the child. And so it was just an incredibly positive moment. And what we have seen and what I have heard, and even looking at our data, is that we continue to have kids requesting, I hear there's some therapy available. How do I get signed up? Um, and that's powerful. I think that speaks a lot to the quality of the therapy and of the service when you've got your kids within buildings talking about it, and asking for that, especially middle school and high school.
Right. No, that's what a great story. Oh, do you promote therapy in any certain way, or is it largely like, word of mouth, or only students, that then you or your team are identifying?
So we do monthly newsletters that go out to our entire community. I have
Ah,
put a couple of articles in there about the service. However, we really have not like done a ton of promoting it, other than when we know individual kids, we discussed it with our staff. They know it's available. We have put some things out to the community to know it's available. And then it's really been as our counselors, as our teachers. We've even had some referrals come through principals, like, hey, we think the student would be a great candidate. Um, that's been the extent of our kind of putting
okay.
it out right
Yeah.
now. This was our first year. Um, so
Great. Well, it definitely sounds like word is kind of getting out, but even for teachers and counselors and principals to know about it, I think brings some of that, just say, awareness and comfort that, we've got an option if we see a student in need.
our
Go
can
ahead.
I just say one more thing on that? Like
Yes.
we did purchase enough sessions to have 20% of our student population be able to engage in 8 to 10 therapy sessions, was kind of how, when we set that up with our salesperson, um, we didn't know if we were going to use it all. We didn't know if we need more. And so that's why that first year we just kind of took it on an individual referral basis. And we used up all of that, and we're able to secure funding here in Wisconsin to carry over into the summer. And now we'll be doing the same amount in the fall and could use more.
Right. Great. How did the summer sessions work? Do you want to share that with the team? Because some districts, they don't, they kind of stop over the summer, and some leave it going. So how was your summer experience?
I'll be honest, I was a little nervous. Like I said, as far as the funding piece goes for summer, we received a significant donation that allowed us to continue those services through the summer. We still have some kids pursuing those.
Mhm.
We've had some families decide, they're busy, they're not going to, but a number of students have wanted to continue that over the summer. And they do that, they're doing the scheduling with the therapist.
Yeah.
They're obviously, in our case, they're not doing that in the school setting, then they're doing that at home. I can track that through your
Portal.
portal.
Right. That actually ties into a question that was sent over to me is how do the sessions get scheduled? So just from a gaggle standpoint, once the student or teacher, once the client is matched to the therapist, they largely start working on it on their own. And then as they are scheduled, then emails and text messages can go to the client, the counselor, and the guardian. But let me open that up. How does scheduling and getting to sessions work for all of you?
Well, for me, I get all the messages about the sessions. And if it's during the school day, I run to the elementary school and set up the computer and go get the child and put them in the room. Um, because our students can't get any outside emails. So my high school students have a place that they go, and I send them the email after I get it, and then they follow through. So it works out really well.
Right. So you allow K through 12 to do sessions, Becky?
Yes,
Yeah. And if it's at the elementary, you help them, but then middle and high, you just communicate with them what they
I do.
need.
And if they
Yeah.
don't show up, the therapist usually send me an email and say, "Where are they?" So
Yeah.
sometimes I'm going to find them, but for the most part, my high schoolers are responsible.
Okay. Great. Maggie, what about you?
So the referral window has evolved over the course of the last 3 years that we've had it, and it's so nice because it allows whoever is submitting the referral to kind of identify who the contact person is, like within the district. So in that referral, we say that the counselor reach out to the parent, and if the parent identifies that they want therapy during the school day, then I plug in that school counselor's information. And then they will work with the Gaggle therapist on when's a good time for that student's schedule. That's not going to disrupt their academic learning too much. And then we do have parents that request it be after school, which is awesome to have, that availability on the nights and weekends. And we do have some students that that utilize it that way as well. But the referral window really walks you through like
Yeah.
how to identify where it's happening and who to contact if it's at school or home. So
Great. Don, what about, so you shared that you did the summer, and do you allow for nights and weekends too? Like, how do
Yes.
you make sure they get to the sessions? Yeah.
So it's similar as to what
Right.
Maggie talked about. That really, we assign who is going to be the contact for that particular student. I would say 95% of the time that is the school counselor. We have our school psychologist on a couple of different cases who might be that contact. And then they can see when those are scheduled. Students will often, we have in each building a separate little room. So often they're going into the school office where there's just a quiet room and a computer where they can log on. And then, the secretaries would be aware so that they can help them if they need to. But it's pretty simple unless they've chosen to do it outside of school hours. And then that is done with the family.
Yeah, love to hear the simplicity of it.
Yep.
I think it's important to point out, they are they are Zoom sessions. We've actually added that we can now do Google Meet as well. So we're just trying to continue to evolve to meet tech needs of districts and ways that we can continue to reach all students. And so it doesn't matter, like, kind of the device, or just as long as they can
Mhm.
access Zoom or Google Meet, they are set up. And another point I'd like to highlight here is when it's those nights or weekend sessions, our therapists, they're going to communicate with the parent, just like this situation. They will text, a reminder about the situation, or about the session. They will also text, maybe if they're there, they will hang on for a little bit and still, stay on. They reach out to the parent and or the student to, when it's nights and weekends too. So you're hearing stories of reaching out to Becky or the counselor, are they coming? That happens on the nights and weekends too.
We do. I will say this, one of the conversations we had as a pupil services team is, sometimes counseling can be really, kids can have some really tough sessions. And so we really wanted to make sure they were in a safe and comfortable environment when they were doing those sessions, that if they needed a few minutes after the session, they could, just take some time to decompress if they needed to, or that the counselors were really aware, our school counselors were aware of those schedules as well, so that if they might know a student who's really going through some difficult times, and hey, I'm going to check in on them before they head back to class. Um, Again, not any extra work, but it's just some of those little things to think about so that we're really supporting kids.
Supportive, mindful. That's a really great call,
Mhm.
Dawn, because sessions can be heavy and
Mhm.
hard, and it could be a lot to expect someone to then just go walk back into a classroom ready to learn.
Right. Right.
It ties into another question that I got, actually, and I'll open it up to all of you, that follow up on that great tip. What recommendations would you have for a district that wanted to implement gaggle therapy?
Just do it.
I would agree. Just do it.
It's
It's been wonderful. It's given our students just what they need.
Great.
I would echo, Gaggle has been an excellent resource for our district. And being that we've had it this many years, I would also just note that expect it to spread like wildfire in your community, that it's an option. When we first enrolled it that first year, we were having health and human services, probation, like everybody was reaching out, like, do you have availability for a gaggle
Oh,
referral for the student, which was nice. But then, I mean, it's a catch-22 also, because as we were coming out of those years where it was like a long wait list for providers, we have good communication with the therapists in our town, and they're like, we have openings. And
yep.
not necessarily a negative side effect, but just a side effect in general is that because the school was providing it, it then became almost an expectation. And so this last year, we really honed in on empowering parents or guardians to, make that initial step. So earlier we talked about kind of what were your qualifications about, referring, that kind of thing. We created our own little letter about for families that were interested in Gaggle, and the criteria was that since it was a short-term solution, that one of the criteria was that they had to be or at least inquired about a wait list with a local provider, because our district is one that we don't do summer sessions. We did that first year and then opted not to the last 2 years, but just so that way there's no gap. Students weren't having therapy through 3 months and then lagged because there wasn't that setup prior to Gaggle ending. So it has been so helpful, and we've appreciated the service exponentially. But there then comes that that repercussion, for lack of a better word, of there it becomes that
Comes
expectation.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, planning for that, and empowering families to make those steps themselves also.
I think what kind of, if I can add on to what Maggie said a little bit on that, one of the things in the conversations that we had, um, we really were looking for, I was really looking for, even before we presented this to our school board, is the sustainability. And so I don't, depending on what state you're in, but we were able to find some resources where we knew we could sustain this for at least a number, that if it was successful, we were going to be able to sustain at the level we are at least now into the extended future here,
Mhm.
at least several years. We also recognized and that there is no therapy that is method that is the end all be all for every student, so that this was one resource, and really having the data and looking at your data within your district. What are your needs? What are your kids' needs? It's not the same in every community. And so I did have that data to share with our administrative team and with our community and with our board. Like, here's why we're pursuing this. It's not just it's the latest, greatest opportunity, but here's the data to really show why this is the need and how many of our kids are struggling and so on and so forth. And so I think that's really important to get that community and board buy-in when you're talking about something that's expensive, and isn't necessarily curriculum.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Having a plan in a couple of ways, like developing that need. And Don, you're so right. You never want to bring in a one of those tools. Nothing is the end all be
Right.
all. We look
Right.
to just put, the tools in the toolbox that are going to all add up to creating
Yes.
the success. And you don't want to bring something in that then you're going to have to take away, especially when it is successful because of the budget side. And we're very aware of that. Our team, like on the front end, we've even had a reference to working with our salesperson here, working through those numbers. So data of what your community, your student population, your community needs. But then, Don, this kind of ties to something you said earlier, how you started budgeting for it. You picked a percentage of students, and you also picked a percentage of, a designated time they would see. You made reference to that 10 to 12
Yep.
sessions. We do come in with that recommendation to be that supplement, not the end all be all.
Yep.
Teletherapy is not going to fix everything and or anything. It's got to be part of a plan. And so,
Right.
Maggie, I think then that ties really into what you are highlighting to this question as you're looking to implement Gaggle therapy, is putting those plans together, making sure to bring communication to the student and the families, how this will be used, what it's to be used for, and really that it's time to get to that place where it may take 6 weeks, 3 months to
Mhm.
go to get that therapist on your own, or to verify eligibility and or insurance or the wait list. This comes in very quickly, and to set up for success, the whole path of therapy. So really, bringing the data, having the plan. I really think, the communication is key. I hear all of you talking about communication with the therapist, communication with the student, communication with the family. When everyone is working together to support that student, that gets the student there, showing up is, in that first session, it's a big step. And then making that connection to take the next step. And also I'll just sum what they all said, just do it. So I'm gonna end on that question, follow up. So we'll be in touch later on that one. So now moving to another question is, and kind of ties to going for the ask for the big spin. How do you show success? How do you show the justification to continue the spend?
I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I will jump in if it's okay,
Please do.
because I did just have to do this with our school board.
Perfect timing.
And so that's, I part of my role as well. And we really looked at, when I presented that to the board and we had our conversation about funding, and continuing funding, we looked at the number of sessions. We looked at how many kids stayed, and continued through going to counseling, how many kids didn't continue, right? They maybe went to one session and then canceled 6 of them. So we really looked at that data, and what we saw is that we had kids participating, and we had kids even on a wait list to participate. We looked at it instead of just saying, are we seeing a decrease in behavior in school, or are we seeing some great achievement data increase? We didn't look at that as much as we looked at participation, our kids engaging in the therapy. Because the reality is, if all you're looking is to say, did my discipline decrease? Well, it might not decrease right away. It's going to take some time. So we really focus that on our kids engaging and participating in it. And then continuing to talk about what's available in our community still. We also paired that with survey data that we continue to do about from our students. What are your needs? What are your needs? As adults, we often think we know, but I frequently say, have we stopped and asked the kids lately? So that's how we made those decisions.
I would echo what Dawn is saying about student engagement. And it was interesting, like students that we kind of similar to what Dawn was saying earlier about students who just were not, like, would never think about attending counseling or therapy, for one reason or another. When you told that or talked to the student about Gaggle and said, it's likely that your therapist is going to be out of state, actually. They bought into that so well, because it kind of gave them the opportunity to remain anonymous in some way, shape, or form. Because, when you're from a small town, it's like, even in a slightly larger community, from a typical rural setting, like, who everybody is. And so you don't feel like you can talk about the experiences that you're going through without your therapist knowing who your mom and dad are, or who your friends are, that kind of thing. And so we saw that engagement with Gaggle significantly among the students who we referred, because of that ability to just kind of be themselves and and know that who they were talking to, it wasn't, there was no bias there, because they didn't know anybody in the community. So that the engagement piece, and how we were able to kind of engage students in that a surprising way, I guess, was definitely something that we looked at.
I also
That's a
think
really
that
good point. Yeah, go ahead, Becky.
oh, thank you. I also think that we gave them a greater understanding of what therapy really is, and they're able to talk to each other about what therapy is, because I don't think before then they knew what it was. And we have had surveys. We give a wellness screener, and our rate of students feeling supported is going up. And I think that's one of the reasons, is because they know that they, if they ask, we will try to find them some therapy if they need to be supported.
Yeah, therapy is not a bad word. Let's make it cool. Like, for sure. Well, thank you for that. All great stuff. We're moving into our last 10 minutes of a really great discussion. So I'm going to turn it over for, final thoughts. Are there things that you came in and wanted to make sure you say, or anything to wrap up? I'll let everyone kind of say a closing statement if you want, and sign off to the team. Maggie, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I guess just thank you to Gaggle for the availability with both the therapy, and then I'll plug the safety as well. We within their district, I mean, those in combination with each other have been have helped us catch a lot, maybe where that we wouldn't have caught before. And then follow up and get students the services they need, where they would otherwise be unavailable. So if you're a district considering Gaggle, it has been mostly exponentially positive for our district and our students. And yeah, that's all I have.
Becky, go ahead. I see you're off mute.
Oh, I would agree with everything Maggie says, but also they helped me to navigate the system the whole way. And the relationships that we formed, I mean, whenever I have a problem, I know I can call and I can get an answer the same day. So I feel like it's a win-win situation.
Great, thank you. And Dawn?
I think kind of the agreeing with what both Maggie and Becky have said. I can't say enough positive about both the therapy component and, as Maggie said, the safety. We use both. And I think if you're considering, I'd highly suggest doing both. Um, I'm really grateful for the quality of not just the therapy, but everything that has come with Gaggle and Gaggle Therapy. I mean, I had a concern with something that a student said was said during a therapy session by a therapist. And I don't remember, Heather, if it was you or another person, but we sat down and had a conversation about that. And it was super positive in the end, and we were able to work through that. So again, I can't say enough positive about the company and the services.
Well, thank you so much. A little bit of a spoiler alert, and Dawn and Maggie, I'll probably be reaching out to you for some feedback, but we're really working on ways to even make a stronger connection between our safety management and our therapy services, because we know when we find students with questionable content, which is one of our levels of incidents that we find on the safety management side, when we see repeat behaviors they're more likely for that more concerning content, and making sure that you in your seat know who those students are, so you can be connecting them to other services. So I may be calling to get some feedback and ideas shared there. So definitely appreciate all of that. Here at Gaggle, and kind of what I said from the start, we strive to just be that partner, turn this into an us. We are working to keep these kids safe and have the mental health and well-being that that they deserve, that gives them their lifetime, you know, that sets them up for success. We're all working on it. And I feel that shining through. One of our core values is to provide exceptional customer service, even if it doesn't make financial sense, because we're all about just going above and beyond every time. And I love that the shares just kind of give me feedback that we are living our core values. It's why we share our mission. It's why we share our vision. Thank you for all of this. This has made my day. Heck, I'm ready to take this show on the road. But I wish you all a very, very successful and safe back to school as we all get ready to jump in. Again, my name is Heather Durkak. I'm very easy to connect with, heather@gaggle.net. So if anyone out there has questions, or ladies, if you ever want to reach out, I'm here. But send questions. I can get you to the right area if you want to talk more about implementation. If you want to talk to your sales rep, we'll send out some follow-up email with ways to connect. So with that, we will wrap up. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.